Welcome home, where we provide information, inspiration, and motivator after motivator after motivator here on America's Next. I have Mario Johnson here with me today, and we're going to have a great conversation. I want you to take a few seconds to invite somebody else, text somebody else, tag somebody else, like and subscribe. We are on Roku TV, YouTube, Facebook, Android TV, and Apple TV. Let's build a community and let's rock and roll. Mario Johnson. How you doing today, Mario?
Good, sir. How about yourself?
I'm doing quite well. I'm doing quite well.
Good.
Excited to discover your journey today.
Okay, great. I'm happy to be here to share.
All right, all right. Peace and love to everybody who's coming into the building. We see you guys out there, and for the people that we can't see, I want to say hello to you too. Got a good evening banner on the bottom. Now let's get right into it. Mario,
Okay.
where are you from?
I am originally from Jackson, Mississippi, born and raised in the South.
What was it like for you growing up in Jackson, Mississippi? In fact, M-I crooked letter I. Yeah. What is it?
Humpback, humpback.
Humpback,
Okay.
humpback. Yeah, there you go. There you go. I was gonna say
Um,
PP, nah. Humpback, humpback. That's right.
Humpback, humpback. Growing up in Mississippi was quite interesting to say the least. Growing up there and not knowing the differences that like things other things and how other people live in other places, so you really don't make the connection until later on in life. But growing up in Mississippi was fun. I had a lot of family. I grew up in a single parent household. My household consisted of my mother, my grandmother, and my oldest brother. And I can honestly say that I grew up in a household that was filled with love. My father was in my life. He just wasn't. He just was not in the household. And oddly enough, he lived maybe three houses up the street from where we live. So we were
Mhm.
still kind of connected. And so grew up with a lot of family. Grew up with a lot of love. Also grew up in a culture. I say grew up raised in a culture of whiteness and how to assimilate to whiteness for safety. Growing up in the South because I'm black and black males did not fare well in the South, and so my mom was always concerned about how we were dressed and how we spoke and how we presented ourselves when we were out, and so grew up in this culture of really trying to, in a way, assimilate to whiteness out of safety. And I say that because my mom really felt that in order to keep us safe, people had to see us differently.
What do
And
you
in
mean?
order, people
What do you
had
mean?
to see us differently and see us as non-threatening. And she felt that how we presented and how we dressed and how we looked kept us safe in a sense. Um, And so it's taken me some time to kind of really shake that and really get to the core of my blackness and who I am as a black man. I always say that because it's been a journey with that as well. Really understanding and recognizing how black men are viewed and not wanting to be too far on the left or too far on the right, but be the person that I am and embrace my blackness and be who I am.
That brings me to my first question. As we make an attempt to look non-threatening, do we lose our ability to encourage masculinity, intensity, um, straightforwardness, assertiveness? How do we balance? How do we balance that?
That is a very good question, and a question that I grapple with all the time. Yes, I do think you lose a certain amount of masculinity, you lose a certain amount of aggressiveness. Because if I come off as aggressive, then I'm the angry black man. So you told this line of wanting to be assertive and wanting to present, but you have to be careful about, you're concerned about being careful about how you do that because you want the whole to receive you in a way that they feel comfortable and safe and will invite you in. I have now shedded that, and this is who I am. and this is how bold I'm going to be, and this is how direct I'm going to be, and this is how I'm going to call you out.
Wow.
That has,
Congratulations. Congratulations on that. And much respect for that. You know, this is going to be a focal point of this conversation because I think there's a whole lot of value in this point that you're making right here about saying I'm going to be my authentic self.
mm-hmm,
I'm going to be me, who is from Jackson, Mississippi, who is different from you if you're from outside of Mississippi. You know, I am a black man with coily hair and I wear a beard,
mm-hmm.
and that's gonna have to be non-offensive as I sit at the table and add value just like everybody else. I think a lot of people deal with that challenge. How do I
Absolutely.
retain how do I retain my masculinity? How do I perform as the same person who sits in my living room on Thanksgiving
Mm-hmm.
inside of this building or this organizational structure? Because you'll never be more likable, more lovable, more intelligent, more of anything than you are at the Thanksgiving table.
Exactly.
you know
Exactly.
so I'm very interested in how you manage to present yourself and still get promoted and still be loved and still be seen as a doer at the end of the day.
That journey for me has not been easy. I grew up, like I said, I had a wonderful childhood. I went to school, I went to Jackson State, go JSU, love
Mhm.
Jackson State. Um, and I started in child welfare around 2002.
Okay.
And when you first come into that culture, no matter who you are, you quickly assimilate to the policies and the practices and the rules that are presented to you in training. And you start acting out these things. And so, what I started to see about myself as I started my practice in social work was that what I was doing was hurting kids. And I was trying to figure out how to flip it and how to change it. And in figuring out how to flip it and to change it, I just started with me.
Hold on. Did you say that you felt like what you were doing was hurting kids?
Exactly.
Break that down.
I would break that down in the sense of saying when you go into a home and you remove kids for their parents having roaches or the house being unclean, or those
Mhm.
are all listed as or used to be listed as safety risks for
Mhm.
children. Removing a child from a loving home because a parent lives in an apartment that's the whole building's infested
Mhm.
is not fair to that child and causes trauma for that child.
Mhm.
And so that's where I first started to just kind of really think deeply about, oh my goodness, like what these practices are and these policies are not aligned with culture and who people are and the real life experiences that they're having. And we're doing more harm by pulling children out than maintaining the family and looking for resources and making sure that the resources and supports that this family need are actually in place and authentically engaging with the family. Because now you have to go back 20 years ago, it was this is your case plan, this is what you need to do. So we just got to this place in child welfare where we're engaging, we're having the conversation, where we're saying, hey, this is why we were called, but we want to know what your needs are. How can we help you become your best and building a plan based off that and working with the family? So it used to be heavily steeped in this is what we feel you need to be or do to be a great parent. And that's not always culturally sensitive toward Black people.
Mhm. Do you first of all, you said that in your firsthand experience, young people are being or were being taken from their parents simply because of the conditions of the building or because they had roaches or probably with some rats in there too. But it boils down to poverty. Someone
Exactly.
someone comes to your home because your child had a bed bug on them or a roach on them.
Hmm.
They discover the conditions of your home and they say, we've got to take your children. You know, while you might be working a job or two trying to get your children out the projects, you know, while you might be going through the throes of society because maybe you were born into poverty
Hmm.
and thousands of children must have been taken out of their parents' homes for reasons like that.
Yeah, if you look across the continuum and look at the removal reason for Black and African American children specifically, a lot of it is due to general neglect, which goes
Mm,
connect for me straight back
mm,
to poverty.
mm,
And so you have to make that connection and understand that even if it's you as one person, you have to operate differently to be the change that you ultimately want to see nationwide. And so I had to make that flip. And in making that flip, I had to do a lot of deep work with self and just figure out, okay, Mario, who are you and what are you representing? Because you clearly see that what you're doing and how you're doing it doesn't authentically represent you, but
mm,
what authentically represents you and who you are. And so that journey for self and um, discover yourself and just coming to terms with blackness and who I am as a black man and embracing that and feeling free to embrace that helped me be able to sit in a room and vocalize the nuances or the things that I saw wrong and that was happening with children in care.
mm.
Now, that's not always received well. Let me say that first of all. That's not
Okay.
always received well. And as soon as a black man raises his voice or he speaks with passion, is oh now you're mad or you're offended. No, I'm not offended. What I'm more offended about is what's happening over here and what we're doing, and we're not doing anything to course correct this. That's what
Mm,
I'm more offended by. But
mm,
what I'm trying to tell you today is this is the problem. This is how I feel we need to address it. And we need to come together and move this plan and implement this plan or plans to move these things forward so our children are no longer suffering. Um, Being black in child welfare, it's easily to be marginalized. It's easy for your voice to be muted, but you have to continuously be the advocate. You have to look for loopholes. One of the best things that I found in my journey is knowing policy like the back of your hand, because you have to continuously look for those loopholes. You have to look for the opportunities to make policy changes and do all these things to benefit the children and the populations that you serve. And so it really has taken me some time to just kind of grow into develop into this person that I am today. I didn't start here. And I think that's important for people to hear is that you don't always start where you are. And I feel even that I'm at a certain place today, but I'm hoping tomorrow that I'm better. As I shared with you, these type of opportunities I typically shy away from, but to expand my bandwidth and for me to become the next great motivator, then this is what I need to do. I need to share my voice and feel comfortable in doing that and share it on a larger platform. So I'm grateful to you for this opportunity. Just to,
Absolutely. What I've been inspired by so far is the way that you noticed that your presence makes some people um you know take offense a little bit. Maybe your perspective or your point of view that hey,
Mhm.
we just can't take kids because of poverty. I don't think it's right. And you didn't let that moment defeat you. You didn't let that moment stop you from showing up for young people the next day. You didn't let that moment stop you from showing up for parents the next day. And you represent many college graduates who've gotten into the child welfare space only to discover the massive amount of work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to figure out what shovel you're going to grab in the work that needs to be done, sometimes people don't actually make it to the job site, if you know what I mean. But you said, no, I'm gonna grow, I'm gonna figure this out. And there's something about that resiliency right there that really counts. When you look at a large child welfare conference, Black men aren't the largest proportion of people in the group.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that a lot of Black men have realized that there is a moment where their perspective, their gravity, and their sensibilities are just not mainstream in the room, and they take their talents elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But not you. And that makes you a case study within this hour on America's Next Motivator. Now, who were you? Who were you in high school? What were your thoughts about life, and where did you think you were going?
Oh my goodness, I was a total goof off in high school. High school was my awakening. I like to say that's when I
Mhm,
became popular. That's when girls thought I was cute, and
mhm,
so I had a very wonderful high school life socially. Academically, it struggled because I was concerned with everything happening over here in
mhm,
my social
mhm,
world,
mhm. Yeah.
and I did just enough to get by. And so I was probably the goofy, the fun-loving guy. I was friendly. I was everybody's friend. I didn't really go against the grain much. I have this thing when people say, "Well, I don't like you." I say, "Well, I don't know you well enough to like you or not to like you,
Mhm.
but I know you well enough to be friendly and to be kind, and
Right.
that's all you get from me."
Mhm,
And so, I've always kind of carried that same spirit. And it goes back to how I was raised. I was raised in the Baptist church. And, when you're in the South, you go to church 7 days a week for something.
mhm.
And,
That's right.
being taught manners, just simple manners. You say good morning. You speak to people. You're always friendly. And that being reinforced at church and then by the people that you're surrounded with in your bubble,
Mhm,
you just tend to take on this spirit. Um, and so I was a fun-loving person, fun-loving guy. Still the same way, love to have fun, love to laugh, and love to be around my family and friends. I have a group of core friends that we grew up together in church. And some of us went to school together as well, but we grew up together in church, and um, we pretty much spent most of our lives together. So they're more like family. And we have the same values. Yeah, I think that's what really connects us is that we have the same values, and our parents were friends or are friends,
mhm, mhm.
and they had the same values in raising us and making sure that we were people who love God
Mhm.
and people who knew how to respect and people who knew how to carry themselves and present themselves um, publicly. And so that's pretty much who I was in high school,
Mhm.
college, same thing. Loved college, my first taste of being free. And I spent my freshman year having a good time, like
Right.
everybody does, or like
Right.
most people do. I'm not gonna put that on everybody.
Right. Right. Right.
Um,
Most people. A
and
lot of people.
a lot of people. And
Right.
after my grades, and this is I'm dating myself now. So that was back during the time your grades were mailed home. So I
Oh
didn't make it.
wow.
I didn't make it home in time to grab the grades out the
Right.
mailbox.
Right.
And so my mother was a very strong black woman, maybe about 5'5", 5'6", and I'm 6'1", and she was not afraid. She had to stand on the box to punch me in the face. She was gonna
Right.
get me. You were
Yeah.
not going to play with her
Right.
or play with schools or do any of those type things. And so she made it very clear to me after she got my grades from the first semester of me being in school that I was either going to get it together or get out. And
Mhm,
I chose to get it together. And so
mhm,
college was fun, man. I had the opportunity to do a lot of stuff. And even in high school, I sang in my high school choir. And my high school choir gave me the opportunity to travel, to go
okay.
places, to do things. My freshman year in high school, I can't remember I don't know if it was Carnegie Hall if we went to New York or if we went to Italy. But I had the opportunity to travel and to see places and to meet different people and do things. And that really gave me a greater sense of like, oh, there's another world out here. People live differently, people do things differently. And it's not just this what's happening in Jackson. There are
That's
other
right.
things happening around the world. And so
Mhm.
very appreciative of that.
What were the top three lessons, if you can remember three? I think you can. That your mother taught you growing up.
Um, Top three lessons. One is to always be respectful.
Mhm.
That's number one. My mother was big on on respect. You were going to respect her, and you were going to respect her house, and that's just what it was. There was no ifs, ands, and buts about that. The other thing was to
Okay.
always love, and to have a loving heart, and the next thing was to be forgiving. um, Knowing that people are not going to always be on your side. People are not going to always have your back, but you can't hold those things. You have to forgive them and move on.
Mhm.
And so to respect, to love, and to forgive, because even in growing up, there were some things that caused my family trauma and hurt. And my mother never got bogged down into the trauma and into the hurt. She focused more on the healing and the
Mhm.
forgiving of it. Like, hey, we don't know why people do what they do.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Focus
Hmm.
on the healing in all things. Focus on the
Focus
healing.
on the healing.
You can't stop the offense. You
Hmm.
can't stop the fact that now you're hurt, other people is hurt. You can't stop the pain. What you can do is you can mitigate the pain. You can resolve the problem by focusing on the healing.
On the
Had you
healing.
ever had you ever heard about foster care growing up?
Absolutely not. I had no idea what foster care
Hold on.
was.
As I was listening to you talking, I'm listening to someone whose core personality is full of a lot of positive stuff. Your parents did the right groundwork. They formed a community. They knew one another. A parent at the top of the block could call a parent at the end of the block and say, "Hey, my boy's going to the corner store down there."
Hmm.
Friends and family all up and down the street. And y'all were like a network, a community, a village. And when you are that type of caravan in your communities, the love, the energy, the life force, the chi
Hmm.
becomes contagious. And next thing you know, we as a community are a brand that produces a certain type of humanity, which
Hmm.
is Mario Johnson, for example. And I feel that that's what we need to do outside of Jackson, Mississippi. That's what we need to do all around the country. The people who are not familiar with Southern hospitality, speaking to people when you see them, giving a hug, and it means nothing else other than I have love for you.
Hmm.
You know, all these types of hallmarks of good humanity is what people need to adopt all across the country. But specifically in the child welfare space, I think someone like you who didn't grow up with the same traumas of foster care, you grew up from a healthy community with healthy ideas of how to raise one another. I think you can do some very powerful, profound things in child welfare. Now, when did you actually get involved in the child welfare system?
I got involved in child welfare system, like I said, around 2002. I started as what they call the independent living specialist. So
Okay.
that's what we taught foster kids life skills, like how to write checks, communication skills. This is how you talk to people. This is how you wash your clothes. For youth who were transitioning out of foster care. Um,
You
and
had
even
fun, didn't you? You had
I
fun, didn't
did,
you?
I
Yeah.
did. I had a lot of fun. But what I had to learn there, Cedric, is that, and let me go back and say this, this kind of connects to why I stayed in child welfare. I remember being 22. going into this group home. And of course, I was a black male. So they sent me to the worst of the worst group homes
Mm.
that we had. And these were supposed to be the worst of the worst kids. And they were all black males. And I walked in there. I'm trying to go through this lesson and this script that they gave me and these handouts and worksheets. And these kids are just looking at me like I've lost my mind. And
Mm.
so I'm thinking, okay, like I don't know how to reach these kids. I don't know I don't know like what to do. Like, but what kept me engaged was one young man asked me as he was leaving the room if I was coming back.
Mm.
And I was like, I mean, yeah, I'll be back. I think I'm scheduled to come back. Like we have to come twice a month. So I'll be back in like the next 2 weeks or so. He
Right.
was all right. He was like, all right, cool. And that told me that even though they didn't enjoy anything I said, that they enjoyed seeing me.
Mm.
And I went back and I developed relationships with a lot of those guys and watched them grow up. And some of them do great things, some of them not so great things. But it just felt good to be connected and talking to them and having real conversations about what they were experiencing and how they felt helped me to understand how to better teach life skills. So
Mm.
it was beyond what that book had to say. It was beyond writing a check. Those are things that they needed to know, and that was great. But going back to the part about focus on healing, those guys needed to be able to express the pain that they were feeling so they could heal, and they needed a space to do it.
Mm.
Not to be medicated, but a space where they could just really talk about how they felt about being removed from their homes, how they felt about the group home and the situation that they were staying in, and how they felt about how people treated them because they felt like they were treated like second class citizens. And so I offered them that space, and and in addition to offering them that space, I fought hard to do what I could do as an independent living specialist to try to make the space more comfortable to talk to their workers and say, hey, this is what's going on. I think you need to look at it. I think you need to look into it. And just bring awareness to what's happening
That's right.
with these kids. And so that really took me to a different space because that's where I first learned about youth engagement, not even knowing what it was, even before it was a thing and it was a
Mm.
term, not
Mm.
even knowing what it was and what I was actually doing.
Mm.
Um, and offering those young men in that group home.
That's right. That's right. I spent years of my life in foster care. This is a very important topic to me. It's a very personal discussion for me as well. I understand how young people who are in group homes, treatment centers, or foster care, sometimes when you have, multiple foster kids who aren't biologically related in one home, you form a society where it's like a huddle, like, hey, y'all, we're all in the system, you know,
Mhm.
and there are certain codes that they give the staff to let you know what they're thinking. They don't want to look vulnerable, they don't want to look soft, or they don't, want to look like, like they're needing anything. And they might sit there with one eye open the whole time with their hat over their eyes. But right before you leave out, hey, you coming back tomorrow?
Mhm.
That one kid who says, hey, you coming back tomorrow? He spoke for so many other young people in that
Mhm.
room. And he said so much with that one comment. Are you coming back tomorrow?
Are you coming back tomorrow?
Ladies
And
and
man,
gentlemen, go ahead.
no, I was saying, man, the crazy thing about it is like we used to do like weekend retreats for the kids. And man, I would go pick those guys up. We would listen to music as we went to the retreat and just have a good time. And I would let them be themselves. A lot of people would be like, oh, well, they don't need to curse. Well, if you go back to when you were 15 to 16,
Mhm.
like you
Right.
knew when to curse. And those are the little things and the little lessons that I could start to kind of instill in them as we would be together, going to a retreat or doing those types of things. Like, hey, I know you feel that's cool, or whatever else. I said, but you know when to do it.
Mhm.
Like you don't get out in front of everybody and do this. Like you have to act like you have some sense. And acting like you have some sense means what? It was like call and response with those guys. And
Mhm.
I'm just even today, I reflect back on it and just very grateful for the experience that I had because I feel if I didn't have that experience and that engagement with youth early on, I just would have missed it.
Mhm. Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking to Mario Johnson. If you just tuned in, this gentleman comes from Jackson, Mississippi, and he's spreading his cultivation with the wider community. We're having a great conversation, and we'll be right back with more after this brief message. So sit tight. America's Next Motivator, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. America's Next Motivator, hosted by me, Cedric Riley, and sponsored by the Pride Empowerment Network. And we're back. Mario, how you feeling out there?
I'm feeling good, man.
You know what? I want to jump right back into the conversation. You said some things before the break that really resonated with me. You spoke about how when you first got into the room with those young people, you were using your stack of papers and you were going off the program and trying to follow the program and program this and program that. But you realized that something needed to transpire in those rooms with young people that was not on the paper, and that they needed you in your raw form. That's what they wanted from you is Mr. Mario or whatever they called you, Mr. Johnson, in the raw form. How do you feel we can incorporate more of the raw form of people um, in regimented places like foster care, in residential treatment centers, in the system itself? When you look like Mr. Policy or Mrs. Policy, young people run away from you. Sometimes the coworkers don't even like you because at the end of the day, human work doesn't always fit on the paper. Talk about it.
Um, for me, I think what that looks like is really focusing on the individual and tailoring your interaction to the individual when you think about direct services. When I think about what that looks like when you're at the table making decisions about policies and practices and how you should move forward, that looks like speaking up and speaking out and being very candid about what the state of Black children in foster care actually is. And you have to come heavily on with data to show data and not just one piece of data, but like a whole slew of
Mhm.
data that just really focuses on the disproportionality of youth and what they are experiencing in foster care. One of the things that I found alarming is just the number of placements kids have.
Okay. What would you say is some of the highest numbers you've seen of placements before the age of 20 years old?
Probably, and I can give this to you, I would say 5 placements within like 3 months, within like 90 days.
Is this the reason why you feel the need to address disproportionality in the child welfare space? Because it's not like everybody's going through this evenly. It's
Mhm.
like when you look at the numbers, there's a disproportionate amount of young black, well, obviously young black men and black women in the child welfare system. And so when you look at one person being moved around 5 times in 3 months, well, that's a lot. But when 4 out of 10 of you who've been moved around 5 times in 3 months is a Black person, then it looks like I need to specifically address Black people when I get to the big meeting. Is that
Mhm.
correct?
That is correct. That
Mm-hmm.
is correct. And you have to be very, again, going back to the individual focus. When you see the data, we talk a lot about the story behind that data. Like, what does this number really say? You were moved 5 times in 90 days. So, what does this number really say? What does it say about us as an agency? And what is it saying about this child that we're not listening to? Things that we're not hearing. Not that this child is bad and the behavior is just so awful that we have to move him or her 5 times in 3 months. But what is it saying? What is this child crying out for? Like, what's the deeper word? Like, what are we missing and what are we not addressing? And that's the place where we have to start to lean to with these kids. Now, on the other side of that, you also have to lean into your provider space, your foster parent space, your resource parent space, and be very candid with them around the different things that this child has experienced before they came into the home, and have a conversation about how they need to attend to this child.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times when you would sit kids down and talk about the placement disrupting, a lot of it went back to attending to the actual child.
Mm-hmm.
I have a 15-year-old son, and he is about as big as I am, almost as tall as I am. And when we are together, there's a certain amount of attending that I have to do specifically to him. Now he has a girlfriend, he has his friends, and all this woo woo woo. But when it comes to daddy time, or he wants daddy time, I have to give him that. I have to attend to him. I have to attend to his needs, whether that's he wants me to watch a show, or he wants us to sit down and eat dinner, or those type things. And so when you look at kids who are in foster care, the lack of attention given to them in the home puts them in a space where they react.
Let me ask you something. And as always, I'm gonna have to shake the room up a little bit to let the universe know that we're here.
Hmm.
I went through 5 different placements, and there was no father in any of those placements.
Mm.
I've been to conferences, like I said, and looked out on the audience of professionals, and have seen very few African American or what appear to be Black men in a professional space. Is part of dealing with um, Black people in the child welfare space the fact that we need more Black men in the mix. We need
Absolutely.
more black fathers in the foster homes. We need more Black men in the child welfare agencies, the adoption agencies, the city offices. We specifically need more Black men. We need more Mario Johnsons. Is that part of it too?
That is definitely part of it. And then when you even look at Black men who were willing to adopt a child, policy just flipped, where single people or single men could really adopt a child and not be criticized for doing so, or looked at differently if they wanted to adopt a child or to foster a child. And so you are exactly right. You need more Black men in these spaces at the level of direct service, at the level of administration, and definitely in recruiting adoptive homes and resource
Mhm,
homes for children in care.
mhm,
Um, and we have to do a better job, in which we're doing a better job at that now, at even marketing and advertising for, like, hey, we need families of color,
mhm,
because if you go 20 years ago, you didn't see that. You didn't see marketing, you didn't see media around resource parents and all these things. But now you see that, and you see different forms of families now, even families that are lesbian, gay, and or bisexual. You see a lot of that now, and now policies have been aligned to allow us to adopt fully to everyone. That hasn't always been the case. So I'm very happy that child welfare has kind of made the shift. People have opposing views about gay parents, but what if you have a child in care who identifies as gay?
Mhm.
And you need an affirming home for that child. You have to move beyond biases and yourself and really seek what is going to truly serve that child. What's going to make this child whole and healthy,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
what does that look like? What does this child need? And that translates into who you should be recruiting to be adoptive parents and resource parents.
That's right. In child welfare, we have to stay focused. There's a child who has been taken out of its original nest, who's now looking for the right air to breathe, the right water to drink, and the right food to eat in order to still grow up, even though it's been taken from its nest. And so it's an emergency. The whole scenario is an emergency. And given that it's an emergency, we've got to stay focused. Um, how do we address race when we know that there's also white kids, brown kids, Chinese kids, a little bit of everybody is in the child welfare system? How do we speak up for black people in particular when we know that the pressing issue is for all the kids who are in an emergency?
That's a very good question that you just posed. And it goes back to the data and showing the data, the disaggregated data that shows who's faring better than someone else.
Mhm.
And Black children in foster care are not faring as well as their peers. If you look at the reunification rates, if you look at the adoption rates, if you look at time and placements in foster homes, Black kids are not faring as well as their peers. Data speaks. And going back to the story about behind that data, you got to really get to what's behind that number, what's contributing to this pattern of behavior that we have. Why aren't we as successful with Black youth in care as we are with their white peers? Their
So that's a
Asian peers?
fact. That's a fact that black children in the foster care system are doing worse than the other ethnicities in foster care.
Absolutely.
Go ahead,
Absolutely.
man.
If
Go
you
ahead.
if you look at the data and you compare them using the data to their peers, Black kids are not faring as well in the system with school and education and for all these things. And so you have to take that into consideration, because if I have a Black male and a white male, and the Black male has been in, let's say, 10 foster homes and now in a group home, but the white male may have been in two foster homes, in which of the last one, he's been placed there for 5 years.
Mhm.
And they're on a track to adopt him. So he's on his way to permanency. This
Mhm.
Black kid over here is still caught up in a group home and being labeled for behaviors and all sorts of things. Now he's not only in child welfare, we got juvenile justice that's in there now. We got mental health. We got all these systems trying to help, but we're really not helping because we're not getting to the core of what the actual issue is. And we're not getting to the core of the trauma and addressing that and matching that child appropriately with the family that can attend to his needs and give him the love and the care that he actually needs. Because sometimes it's just tough love.
That's right.
Sometimes it's just consistency. I tell
Mhm.
people all the time, there are times if I could return my 15-year-old son, I'll probably like, here, you had that, you had that. But I don't have the liberty of saying like, hey, Cooper did this today, and I just don't think I can deal with it. So I need y'all to come pick him up and find him somewhere to live. I don't
Mhm.
have that liberty. So I have to attend to whatever his needs is. I had to get to the core and the root of where is this coming from? Because one, I know you know better. Same with kids
Right.
in care. One, I know you know better. And you
Well,
know right from
well,
wrong.
what I'm hearing, and we're getting ready to move into the next question. What I'm hearing is lack of black fathers.
Hmm.
Simple and plain.
I totally
Lack
agree.
of black fathers.
That father.
And so it sounds like a call to action for Black men out there to rise to the occasion for their own families in the first place. But I mean, we've got hundreds of thousands of kids in the foster care system, and we're going to need more Black men to say, "Hey, I got an idea. In order for me to make my world a better place, I'm going to become a foster parent." We need more Black men to come up with the bright idea that, hey, in order for me to help my community, I'm going to adopt a child out of the foster care system. We need more Black men to step up to the plate and answer the call for structure and stricture when it comes to the disproportionate amount of young Black kids in the foster care system who need help. Now we got almost 445,000 youth in the foster care system. The people who come to help these children, right? Most of them are not Black men, like we've established 4 times in this episode. And so when a social worker comes and look into the room for somebody to help, hey, it's just not always going to be the Black kid. Sometimes it's going to be, other people. And far too often, the Black man is not looking into that room, grabbing a young Black man, or looking into that room and grabbing a young Black girl. It's just not happening often enough. And like you said, the data speaks. That's why we have to frame it this way, because the data is saying that out of everybody, Black children are faring worse than everybody else. And so that's the gap that you stand in. I find it heroic that you know the policy, you know the data, and you know the reason why equity is required. Now, can you talk about equity in the child welfare space? What is it, and where is it going?
Equity in the child welfare space is absolutely new. Let me just say that. It is new. It's a new buzzword, it's a new conversation. And I feel that there are many places that this conversation can go. But what I focus more on is keeping the light on the disproportionate amount of Black kids who are in care. Now, the the equity space can take you to the LGBTQ plus population. It can take you to women and girls. It can take you to males of color. Um, it can take you in a lot of different spaces, but you have to hold to what the real disproportionality is based on how they're represented in the population. So if I know that Black children only represent, let's say, 8% of the population, and we have over 24% of them in foster care, that's disproportionate.
Yeah.
And if you look at other race and ethnicities, the rate of them in foster care compared to how they are represented in the overall population is proportionate.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that we shouldn't be working to remove those kids from care or working to do something because we have a lot of kids in care who identify as lesbian or gay or bisexual or transgender. You definitely have to focus there too. But where you bring it all together in the equity space is you look at the intersectionalities of kids.
Yeah.
So you stop looking at a kid as one thing. You start to really address and attend to the many things, the many layers, the many different people that this kid actually is. And if you think about self, like we're who we are, but there are many things that make up who we are. There are many experiences that we have and things about us and things, places we've gone, things that we've done that make us who we are. And so really being focused on the intersectionality of it and looking at this kid and recognizing and honoring all the many things that they are and really attending to those things and making sure that that's the equity space that I try to hold close and I try to live in because while I'm holding the disproportionate Black kids here, I'm also holding the intersectionality of those kids and wanting to attend to all those things because that's what's going to make them whole. That's what's going to help them heal and move forward.
You're a hero.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. Who are some of the people who you consider respectable or honorable in the child welfare space?
Oh God. Um, Sandra Gasca Gonzalez, who works for the Annie E. Casey Foundation. Sandra, I can say, is like one of my first examples in the child welfare space of being bold and being passionate. And Sandra pushed me to be bold and to be passionate and to be out there. Leonard Burton. Leonard Burton, I met him when he worked for the Jim Casey Initiative. And it was just real empowering to see another Black man with the same thoughts and like just like the same vigor around doing this work. Leonard was always like really charged and energetic and very unapologetic about what his mission was and what he was trying to do. Virginia Pryor. I met Ginger probably over 10 years ago, and she was a consultant for Casey at that point in time. But just her way of kind of holding the yin and the yang and being able to just kind of wrap everything in a way where people could understand it and it was palatable and people could buy into the vision and really move work for disproportionate populations of kids was absolutely amazing for me.
Mhm.
Lynn Bragg, Lynn Bragg is a powerhouse. Lynn Bragg is so good at organization and just kind of laying things out. So she really taught me a lot about details and organization, just how to lay things out in a way that you can articulate them where people can't do anything but say yes. And last but not least, oh my God, I'm blanking on Jeff's last name. I'm blanking on Jeff's last name, but Jeff Pinnock with We Creative out of Las Vegas. What Jeff managed to do is Jeff focuses on branding. And he comes in and he helps you brand child welfare in a way that humanizes it, that helps people to connect to their why and put that back into their work. And so, if I had to say the people that I've come across, that I've been blessed to come across since I've been doing this work, it would definitely be those folks. They are great
Absolutely.
mentors, and I'm very thankful for them for
Okay.
always supporting me.
We're down to the final 2.5 minutes of the show. So we're going to move fairly quickly from here to the end of the show. I've loved talking to you today, but we're not finished adding value inside of this hour. What is your legacy? What is the legacy that you intend to leave on planet Earth?
You know, I want my legacy to be simply always being willing to serve. You know, I pride myself. I'm not going to ask you to do anything I'm not willing to do. So if it's go take a child from one place to the next or to do whatever else, I think that you have to be willing to serve and serve in a way where you just unapologetically about it and you are relentless with serving. That's part of my growing up as well. My mom taught and my grandmother used to cook. And they always served the least of them. And if I connect it back to my spirit, my spirituality, that's what God came to do. He came to serve. And so I want my legacy to be about service and serving people in a way that help them be their best selves.
There's a young man in foster care right now. He resembles you. His character is similar to yours. He's trying to figure out how to get through high school and how to become somebody. What do you say to him in 10 seconds?
I say, don't give up. Continue to focus on your goals and what your plan you have for your life, and just continue to press. Always continue to press. Never stop.
What is survival to you?
Survival to me is the ability to move forward even when you don't have the emotional bandwidth to do so.
Mhm. What is success to you?
Success to me is having people in your presence, people in your circle who love you, who respect you, and who's always there to be a listening ear. It's not about a position, it's not about money, but it's about having a strong, powerful network of people that you love and that you can depend on.
What is greatness to you? Final question.
Greatness to me, what is greatness to me? Greatness to me is seeing a person that you helped be where they want to be because you were a part of their lives, their life.
Mario Johnson, I want to let you know that I've listened to your story today. I heard the way that you encountered challenges, but you overcame them with grace and stride. We're giving you your respect today while you're still living. Giving you your respect today. Ladies and gentlemen, put your crown emojis into the chat. Ladies and gentlemen, put your crown emojis into the chat. We're giving you a crown today while you're still alive to receive it. Ladies and gentlemen, put your crown emojis into the chat. We are letting you know that you, Mario Johnson, you are America's next motivator.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thanks for
Thank
stopping
you.
by today, all right?
All right, you're so welcome. Thank you, sir. I appreciate everything.
All righty. Hey, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Auntie Lynn, I see you out there, and I love you very much. Each and every episode of America's Next Motivator is going to have something here for you. All you've got to do is stop by and pick it up.